Hello, my name is Mark Bandy, and welcome to my presentation on creating a new standard for research criteria associated with food insecurity. I am a student of Jackson State University. I am from Louisiana. I graduate in the spring. I'm a biomedical engineering student. My interests are vertical farming, cancer biology, and coastal renewal, and Dr. Jackson, Dr. Whedon, and Professor McFarland were my faculty advisors. A little background information to begin. Food insecurity is defined as not having adequate quantity or quality of food at all times for all household members to have an active and healthy life. Food insecurity usually manifests as either a food desert or a food swamp, where a food desert is an area with limited access to affordable and nutritious food, and a food swamp is an area with a high density of establishments selling high-calorie fast and junk food. The manifestation of food insecurity is an enveloped topic, but at its core, its existence revolves around poor urban planning and development. The objective of this presentation is to create a new foundation for research criteria surrounding food insecurity. This criteria will be used for the creation of new wellness programs that would aid in the social, civil, and economic outreach of areas of food insecurity. These programs would need adaptive models showcasing the inherent problems that these food insecure areas would be facing. And these models will require a specificity that over time could possibly aid in the understanding of the complexity of food insecurity. The potential impact of this project is quite large, considering that 35% of adult Americans are classified as obese. While we understand the health risks surrounding obesity, we're not very sure as to why so many Americans are obese. Understanding obesity at the national level requires more advanced research models, specifically ones with the intent of better understanding the causations of food insecurity. On top of this, the USDA estimates that 23.5 million people in the US live in food deserts. So there's a quite large potential impact for this project. The methodology for the creation of this research criteria rests in knowing where current research efforts fail. Current research efforts to understand food deserts exist around understanding how far residents live from fresh produce sources. While this metric shows the existence of food desert conditions, they lack specificity and show no suggestions of the causal source of food insecurity. Coxey, Stowers et al. Suggested that the analysis of food swamps was a better predictor of adult obesity rates than the analysis of food deserts. Testing in areas where food desert conditions were absent showcased that food swamps had a positive statistical significance on adult obesity rates, suggesting that food desert conditions aren't the only factors surrounding obesity, and that other factors affected also, particularly food choice. Understanding the nuances of food choice is very important, and to understand it the best, you have to understand the industrial food production model, showcased here in Figure 1. This bidirectional supply line shows how food in our industrial food model goes from farm input supply to the consumer, while also showcasing all the biophysical, social, and institutional influences that go into creating our food along the way. Analysis of this production model and its influencing factors introduces more parameters for our research efforts and also helps aid in the fight against food insecurity. Another study that was quite interesting was conducted by Chowdhury et al., which found that social media could provide good evidence for understanding the dietary choices of those in food deserts. Instagram posts related to the consumptions of foods that were high in fat, sugar, and cholesterol were higher in frequency by 5 to 17% compared to areas of non-food desert conditions. If we were to incorporate more social media-based approaches to the criteria we use for understanding food insecurity, we could possibly collect even more data, and data that doesn't require active polling. Another study worth mentioning was conducted by Luan et al., which studied areas of Waterloo, Ontario based on their relative healthy food access, which was a metric that they created that measured the amount of healthy food outlets over the total number of outlets in an area. Over a 4-year duration, they observed that the mean percentage of healthy food outlets decreased by 0.3%. While this percentage might be low, If seen in a larger area, it could be significant to the population. So to study this, they extrapolated their findings from Waterloo to the regional level and created a Bayesian hierarchical model to monitor the spatiotemporal trends of their findings from their study. All of the studies that we discussed showcase the vision needed to understand how current methods of researching food insecurity fall short and help us understand where our model needs to where it needs to create its foundation in research to be able to aid in future efforts. The design criteria for our model will be tested on a bi-state area system, specifically 2 bi-state areas of contrasting food security. The 2 bi-state areas that will be used for our system are the Carolinas and the Mississippi River Delta, specifically North Carolina and South Carolina versus Louisiana and Mississippi. The states considered for our system were selected because they have similar socioeconomic demographics, but contrasting food securities. All the states chosen were southern, agriculturally focused, and had a similar median household income. The design criteria that we chose for the testing between these bi-state areas were all deemed vital for understanding food insecurity. The criteria chosen, they showcase relevant socioeconomic, racial, agricultural, geographic, transportation, and health factors for the chosen states. And the statistics were taken from the USDA, US Census, the CDC, and the University of Arkansas's Division of Agriculture. These criteria serve as suggestions for where efforts against food insecurity could begin, but they do not claim to represent all of the factors surrounding food insecurity. To begin, we showcase a figure that was split into 4 pieces, A, B, C, and D, that showcase all of the statistical data that we find relevant for our model. In parts A and B, we showcase the population, socioeconomic, and racial demographic statistics chosen for our experimental model. As you can see, there are many similarities across the line, showcasing a good semblance for a model, but we can see differences in population and population increase, specifically in North Carolina. In parts C and D, we can see the relevant transportation, income, geographic, health, and agricultural statistics chosen for our experimental model. Here, we can see more similarities between the states, but see differences once we get to the top ag commodity portfolios, where we can see that the Carolinas have a much stronger economic impact in their agricultural commodities as compared to the Mississippi Delta. But the Delta has a much larger agricultural diversity as compared to the Carolinas. Our next figure, once I move myself out the way, showcases the food desert frequencies between the 2 bi-state areas. As you can see on our left, the Mississippi Delta area is dealing with a much higher food desert frequency than the Carolinas, despite having many socioeconomic similarities and agricultural similarities to the Carolinas. Our results from our findings show that differences in food desert frequencies and obesity rates could be population-based. The Carolinas population is the fastest growing in the nation and has increased by around 10% in the past 10 years, whereas the Louisiana-Mississippi area has had a very minimal increase of only around 3%. Economic factors causing this rapid population increase in the Carolinas could be responsible for the slightly lower rates of obesity and food desert conditions. On top of this, state agricultural impact could play a role in the difference in the states, could play a difference in the rates between the bi-state areas. All 4 states bolster their overall agricultural impact through broiler chicken sales, but the Carolinas rely heavily on their billion-dollar commodities, while the Louisiana-Mississippi area boasts a more well-rounded agricultural portfolio. The benefits of having multiple billion-dollar industries could explain why the Carolinas have an edge against the Louisiana-Mississippi area in the fight against food insecurity. The Louisiana-Mississippi area also, before the events of Hurricane Katrina and the BP oil spill, thrived off the billion-dollar seafood industries within the Mississippi Delta and the Gulf of Mexico, specifically the oyster industry. The decline of such an impactful agricultural commodity could also explain the difference in food security between the 2 areas. The difference in top commodities between the bi-state areas could also affect food insecurity. The top commodities for the Carolinas only intersect at broiler chicken and miscellaneous crop sales, where the top commodities for the Louisiana-Mississippi area intersect at broiler chicken, soybean, and corn sales, which are all individual commodities unlike miscellaneous crops. These competing industries being so close to one another could stifle the expansion of the commodities and potentially negatively affect food security within that bi-state area. Efforts to bolster the seafood industry within the Louisiana-Mississippi area could re-expose seafood's billion-dollar potential within the area and alleviate the competitive pressure seen within broiler chicken, soybean, and the corn industries. In conclusion, for future efforts against food insecurity to thrive, we have to have a more balanced and well thought out research-based approach towards how we're trying to understand and think about food insecurity, specifically with the standard of information that we promulgate through experimental design. With foundational criteria relevant to food insecurity standardized, efforts of research and renewal stand to become more encompassing of factors surrounding food insecurity. Also, posterior topics of food insecurity also stand to benefit from the promulgation of better research standards, allowing for more efforts of research and renewal to occur. That's everything for my presentation. Thank you very much for having me here. It's been a great day, and I hope you enjoyed my research. Thank you very much, and have a great day.